Today we're going to discuss about equivalent ratio and proportion. Two ratios that have the same values are called equivalent ratios. Equivalent ratios are also known as proportion. So equivalent ratio can be created by 1 multiplying the numerator and denominator by the same number. So for example, we have 1 half. We are going to multiply this both by 2. You will have 2/4. 1 half and 2/4 are equivalent ratios. Or if you want to, you can multiply both the numerator and denominator by 3. So the resulting ratio are equivalent to 1 half. 1 half, 2/4, and 3/6 are equivalent ratios. You can also create equivalent ratios by dividing the numerator and denominator by common factor. So if you can find a common factor for 4 and 8, it can be 2. If you will divide both of them, you will get 2/4. 4/8 and 2/4 are equal to each other, so they are equivalent ratios. Since we can write ratio in fraction, we can also simplify it. So how? By dividing the numerator and denominator by the GCF, or the greatest common factor. So what is the GCF of 6 and 8? So that is 2. So if you're going to divide it, both the numerator and the denominator by 2, you will get 3/4. And 3/4 simplified form of 6/8. So how about 8/12? What is the GCF of 8 and the 12? So it will be 4. So the simplest form of 8/12 is 2/3. Proportion are two equal ratios. So they are equivalent ratios actually. A proportion can be written in two ways. In fraction, it will be like this. Or in column form, so like this. And it will be read as 1 is to 2 as 4 is to 8. So whether in fraction or in column form, this is how this is read. To know whether two ratios are equal or they are proportion, we can use the cross product rule. So in column form, we have to know what are the inner term or the means and the outer terms, which are the extremes. So when you multiply the extremes 1 and 6, you will get 6, and you multiply the means, which is 2, which are 2 and 3, and you get 6. It means the two ratios are equal. They are proportion. When we are dealing in fraction form, we have 1 half is equals to 3/6. So they are just the same. So our extremes is the numerator of the first fraction and the denominator of the second fraction. So that is the extremes. And our means is the denominator of the first fraction and the numerator of the second fraction. So when you multiply the means and you multiply the extremes and they have the same answer, it means the proportion are equal. But what if we have a missing term in a proportion? So let's try to solve it by answering this problem. If 12 pencils are bought for 60 pesos, how much will you pay for 25 pencils at the same rate? What is asked? The amount to pay for 25 pencils. What are the given facts? 12 pencils, 60 pesos, and 25 pencils. How to solve the problem? By finding the missing term in a proportion. If you will notice, our first ratio will be on this phrase. 12 pencils are bought for 60 pesos. It should be 12 to 60. Is equals to blank is to blank. 12 is our pencils and 60 is the amount that we pay for the 12 pencils. So, if we have this order, pencils and amount, for the second ratio, we should have pencils and amount too. So, 25 pencils is the pencil. So, you will have this number here and the missing term will be the amount. So, how are we going to solve it? We will use the cross product rule. So, you will multiply the means and you will also multiply the extremes. So 60 times 25, we have 1,500. And since one of the extreme is missing, so to get the missing extreme, the missing term, you will divide the product of the means, which is 1,500, divided by 12. So the answer is 125. So that should be the missing term in this proportion. To answer, 12 is to 60 as 25 is to 125. So the answer to our problem is 25 pencils will cost 125 pesos. So another example, we have blank is to 8 equals 2 is to 4. So we will multiply the means kasi siya yung magka-partner. Dalawa yung means niya. So we'll have 8 times 2 equals 16. So, since walang ka-partner yung isang extreme, so we're going to divide the product of the means divided by one of the extremes kasi nga yung isa missing. So, 16 divided by 4 equals 4. So, you will have 4 there. So, the missing term is 4. So, let's have another example. 5 to 7 is equal to blank is to 4. So, this time, ang meron naman dalawang extreme. So, you're going to multiply the two extremes. 5 times 4, we have 20. So, since walang kapartner yung isang means, we will divide the product of the extremes, which is 20, divided by 7. We have, so let's divide it. 20 divided by 7 kasi hindi siya eksakto. So 2 times 7, we have 14. Subtract 20 minus 14, we have 6. So since may remainder, gagawin natin siyang fraction. So fraction, pwede rin naman decimal number. Kaya lang mas matagal isolve pag decimal number. So para mas madali, so ang sagot dito is 2 and 6, 7. So yun yung missing term. So just remember, pwedeng ang missing term is a proportion. Okay. So to answer the activity, we have activity 1. Choose the equivalent ratios in column A from the choices in column B. Write only the letter on the space before each number. May I remind you that may answer sheet tayo ha? So you're going to write the answer on the answer sheet. Okay, how are we going to solve this? So for example, we have 3, 6. So, ilo-lowest term lang natin. Ito yung pinili natin kasi yung sa choices, kasi ito hindi naka-lowest term. So, mas mainam, isolve nyo muna lahat to. I-lowest term nyo muna. Para malaman nyo kung alin ay equivalent niya. So, divided by 3, we have 1 half. So, alin ba yung 1 half dito? Number 2. Ibig sabihin, yung 3/6, yung letter A, which is equivalent to 1 half, nasa letter number 2 siya. So, it means number 2 is letter A. So, isolve nyo muna lahat to. O yung isolve nyo muna yung letter B para malaman nyo alin ba yung katumbas dito. Okay, for activity 2, choose the simplest form, its ratios in column A from the choices in column B. Write only the letter on the space before each number. So, ganun pa rin yun. 2 is to 4. So, you have to change it to lowest term. So, the GCF is 2. So, you're going to divide. So, we have 1 half. So, with number 1, 2 is to 4. The answer is 1 is to 2. So, the answer is letter E. For activity 3, express the following ratios in its simplest form. Write your answer on the space provided for. So, isosolve nyo lang ulit. In the lowest term, the GCF is 8. So, we have 1 half. So, your answer here is 1 half. But you have to show your solution on the answer sheet. With activity 4, write the following on the space provided as proportion or merely ratios. The first two items are done for you. So, yung number na to, i-arrange nyo lang. So, if dito sa ratio, dito nyo isusulat. If it's proportion dito, paano nyo ba malalamang proportion? When you multiply the means, we have 180. And you multiply the extreme, it's also 180. They are proportion, kaya dito nakasulat. So, yung number 2, Mark earned 300 pesos for 3 hours of work. So, the first ratio is 300 is to 3. While Justin earned 200 pesos for 4 hours of work. So, dito, 200 is to 4. So, pag kinuha nyo yung means, the answer is 600. Pag kinuha nyo yung extremes, the answer is 1, 2. They are not the same. Kaya dito siya nakasulat sa ratio lang. So, dito walang sagot dito kasi nasa proportion. Dito, since the two ratios are not proportion, so dito siya nakasulat sa tapat ng ratio. Yung number 3, John runs 3 miles every 5 days. 6 miles for 10 days. Saan kaya siya dito? Please take note pag dito nyo inilagay sa ratio, dapat hindi equal. Ibig sabihin kasi, yung means niya tsaka yung extremes, hindi. Or baka naman dito siya. Pag minultiply ba yung means, ano yung lilitaw? Kapag pareho yung means at tsaka yung extremes, dito siya talaga isusulat. Pero pag hindi, sa kabila. Okay. For activity 5, identify the product of the means and extremes in the following ratios and put a check in the column under proportion if it forms a proportion. The first two are done for you. So, dito, imumultiply lang yung means. 4 times 12, we have 48. Kaya 48 dito. We multiply the extremes, it's also 48. So, kaya 48 dito. Since the answer is both of the means and the extremes are 48, so may check sa proportion. Dito, sa number 2, yung may red, ito yung extremes. The extremes is 12. 3 times 4 is 12. And the means is 2 times 3. So, we have 6. So, since hindi pareho yung product nila, walang check dito. So, for number 3 to 6, ganyan din yung gagawin mo. Okay, you have to write the product of the means and the product of the extremes. For activity 6, find the missing term. Use the cross product rule. Write your solution on a separate sheet of paper. So, example number 1, 2 nines is equal to n to 36. So, Cross multiply 2 times 36, we have 72. Since ito yung walang kapartner, 72 divided by 9. The answer is 8. So it means letter N is equals to 8. So lahat na yan, ganyan yung gagawin. Okay? For activity 7, you have to solve by finding the missing term in a proportion. So to solve this, isulat nyo muna ano ba yung proportion ng number 1. Okay. And that's it. Happy learning!